It's August. The sun is out. It's hot as I don't know what in Georgia. People are still going to the beach, and somewhere somebody is aggressively applying SPF 50. Everybody should be applying SPF 50. But Home Goods is like skeleton because apparently Halloween now begins whenever people become emotionally tired of summer. And honestly, as somebody who is obsessed with fall, I totally understand. Summerween has gone from being a cute idea, on the internet to an actual retail season. Michael's has Summerween decor. Halloween products are starting to show up earlier across major retails. And candy companies are starting to pay attention too. Ferrer says that 17% of its candy corn sales now happen before Labor Day. Do y'all really like candy corn that much out there? And a morning consult survey commissioned by Hershey found that 67% of US parents had bought Halloween candy or snacks during summer in recent years. 67%. So now, apparently, we have all collectively looked at July and said, you know what would improve this heat wave for me? Reese's Pumpkins. And the obvious explanation, of course, is that retailers are greedy and they keep putting out holidays earlier and earlier to collect the money. Which, I mean, yeah, obviously. Businesses have never met a calendar or holiday that they could not monetize. And Christmas is already basically circling in March now, okay? At this point. But that explanation doesn't necessarily fully work anymore because consumers aren't just tolerating it. Like at first it was big stores and big brands pushing it, but now consumers are participating in it. They're throwing Summerween parties, like you see in this clip, making themed food, doing Halloween nails, creating outfits, and celebrating the holiday that technically does not exist, right? So the question becomes, why are we so eager to enter into the next season before the current one is even over? Welcome to Read the Room, the corner of the internet where we study why certain people, ideas, products, brands, and even cultural moments like Summerween become impossible to ignore. Hi, I'm Erica Ige. I study people, culture, psychology, and performance to understand why we respond to the things the way that we do. And around here, we're not just asking whether or not something worked, we're asking what people notice, what they interpreted, and then we look at what that response can teach us about creating things, businesses, and brands that are worth paying attention to. And today we're going to be talking about Summerween, which is especially funny because from my research, it came from an episode of Gravity Falls, which is a Disney Channel cartoon show that was based on a fictional town and where they celebrated Halloween during summer. In this show, there was a lot of things about zombies and different types of monsters and different types of crazy interactions that would happen in this town. So this idea came from the fact that they kind of existed around like a summer camp S type environment in Gravity Falls and that they were just going to be celebrating Halloween during the summertime. But then humans or people watched that and were like, you know what? Wait, why don't we do that? Why don't we celebrate Halloween in the summertime? And as somebody who is not an avid summertime person, I cannot stand the heat, the mosquitoes, the bugs, all of it drives me up a wall. I love fall. I love everything that fall represents. I get it. I get the lore behind wanting to celebrate Halloween during the summertime. I am not trying to be out here at these summer parties. I really want to be cozied up with a pumpkin spice latte or some hot apple cider in my flannel. And I want to be looking at pumpkins and the leaves changing colors. Like that is my favorite part of the year. So I get it. I can understand why somebody would be like, let's create still this fictional ritual and make it our own actual ritual. And congratulations, then it becomes a culture. But I think the reason why it caught on also tells us something a lot bigger about, you know, just Halloweens and seasons in general is that seasons are not just weather, they're emotional containers. Fall is not only like just that the temperature dropped. Fall also means cozy, reset, pumpkins, school starting, football, candles, Halloween, and a change in atmosphere. The season tells us, okay, it's a new chapter. And people love that. Like psychologically, it means like you get a chance to start over before the holiday season. And psychologists sometimes talk about how temporal landmarks or moments that help us mentally divide basically times in before and after. So, New Year's, birthdays, Mondays, the beginning of the semester, the start of a season, they give ordinary time structure, which means seasonal rituals aren't just decorative things. They help the year feel like it's moving along and also are kind of like landmarks during the year for people. Right. And I also think that the internet has kind of started changing our relationship to these transitions as well, because now we don't just feel the feeling or, go outside and just experience the transition of fall. We actually see it a lot earlier too, before this current season is done. Like this right here is already getting people excited about the fact that like fall is coming and it's approaching. When you're eating a watermelon in July and TikTok says, "Look at this Halloween mug," your brain goes, "Oh, I do want to feel that now." And suddenly remember that summer is like super long and fall feels extremely exciting to you. And you mentally start entering into the next chapter before the weather has started shifting. And so you buy the mug and, maybe want to go to a Summerween party or create a Summerween party. And it helps it gets interesting. And even though the weather right now is saying it's hot outside and it's August, the stories are saying it's Halloween. And TikTok is saying it's cozy season. And your brain goes, fine, we're already in spooky season. You don't necessarily, need the calendar to officially give you permission anymore. Culture has already triggered that the season is starting earlier. And Summerween gives people something also really useful. It gives people a reason to take the ordinary time between the start of summer and the start of fall, a reason to feel different. And there isn't really any major holidays between July 4th in the US and Halloween besides Labor Day, but like a lot of people don't necessarily celebrate Labor Day. They kind of just, take the day, take time off, right? So summer feels particularly long as a season, whereas like fall is it's kind of quick, and then you're in Christmas basically before, November is over with, because some people start celebrating Halloween like right at the end of, September. And then by the time Halloween's over, everybody's already like in Christmas mode. So Summerween kind of is like that, is really is helping people with that period of time where it's just like long, kind of like drawn out summer days. And people have put it in there and was like, what if we put a ritual here? And I think people kind of also do that too when there is there is nothing happening and something, it gives people an exciting reason to decorate or a reason to have a party or reason to make things, reason to, create experiences in your house, in your home, and a reason for like your weekend in the summer to feel different than the last one. And that's useful, right? And it's also very useful commercially, which is why brands and stores have started paying attention, because once consumers start treating seasonal products as tools for creating a feeling rather than just objects tied to a specific date, the buying window shifts. Halloween doesn't just have to begin on October 1st if people are already emotionally ready for it in August. And then it creates this kind of chicken and egg problem where, like, did consumers pull Halloween forward or did retailers teach consumers to want it earlier by putting it in front of them? And I think it's probably a little bit of both, because that's usually how culture and commerce kind of work. People will start doing something and then brands will notice it, and then brands make it easier to participate. And so then more people see it, and then the behavior kind of becomes normal. And then something else happens, like naming it, which is really powerful for a cultural experience. And so now you don't have to say, oh, well, I know it's August, but I wanted to decorate for Halloween early. No, now you can say, well, it's Summerween. So I see it's a totally legitimate reason for me to decorate early. And so now naming the behavior gives people language for something that they may have already wanted to do. And the language kind of created the permission for them. So that's one of the reasons why trends can also grow so quickly. And sometimes a trend doesn't have to even invent a new desire, it can just already give an existing desire a name, a structure, and a group of people who are doing it with you, which again is a extremely strong motivator for behavior, but also for buying behavior. So maybe you always wanted to start Halloween earlier and now you have a hashtag to use. You can create a Pinterest board in the Michaels aisle, and congratulations, your impatience has become part of the market segment. But there's also some tension too, because part of what makes seasonal rituals so powerful is the anticipation, because you have to wait for the thing to arrive. And that is what makes it exciting, right? So if you start celebrating it early, that anticipation might leave. Right? If you start celebrating Halloween in June and then Christmas starts in September and Valentine's Day starts December 26th, like eventually the entire year becomes this continuous seasonal merchandise aisle. And I know for me, for example, I just choose to ignore it. I know a lot of other people who ignore it. Like I am one of these people who absolutely refuses to put my Christmas tree up until after Thanksgiving. And part of the reason I refuse to put my Christmas tree up is because I'm not trying to rush the season. And I've also started thinking about this. I saw people celebrating Halloween, Summerween, and I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm not going to do it though. I am not going to start celebrating Halloween or even start thinking about Halloween until September, or at least until the middle of September, because no, it's still summertime, right? And so again, that was a little aside, but it just also like begs the question about this too. If a season never really leaves, does it really still feel special when the season actually finally arrives? And I think that's also kind of like a little fascinating thing too, for a problem for retailers too, because extending a season gives you more time to sell for sure. But I feel like stretching it too far can also flatten the anticipation that made it super valuable and kind of create a craze in the first place. So there's some strategic challenges in doing this and approaching this as a brand or a business too, because it's like if you're not a big box retailers have this massive department of marketing and all these things behind it, so they can kind of get away with a little bit more. But if you're a smaller brand and you're thinking, okay, should I launch early for Halloween, or is it like, how do we respond when consumers are entering this like emotional season before it's officially one? And I think that's why it's also useful to study and understand culture when you're looking at your business for data, is that if enough people are beginning to behave as though a season already exists, for a retailer, it pretty much effectively does. But I also think that it's important that also not every brand needs to be rushing to have a theme campaign. Like if your brand is built on like, slowing down and reminding people of how things used to be and stuff like that, then maybe it wouldn't be useful for you to do a campaign that celebrates Summerween. Sometimes people just like craft and decor. I know I do. I love a good craft, right? But like, if you're a tax company, should you be talking about Summerween? Probably not. You don't always have to jump on the, oh, how do we jump on the Summerween bandwagon? Like, or trend, like, because it's like, is that behavior actually changing anything in your brand? Are your customers shopping earlier because of that? Is it helping them create a new occasion? Like, again, with the taxes, people already hate taxes. Most people try to not think about them until they absolutely have to do them. So like, is this gonna help your brand sell by you talking about Summerween? Probably not. People want to feel good feelings around it. So you need to also look at the emotional feeling that people are having and pay attention to those signals to see if a trend is actually going to make sense or logical sense for your brand. So yes, Halloween is starting earlier. Other holidays are starting earlier, partly because of retailers, mainly because of them, and then partly because algorithms are showing us what's next before we're finished with what's now. And because people are on their phones more than ever, it doesn't help, because a long time ago people waited for seasons because you couldn't go outside to change the weather, and you didn't necessarily see someone else being like, you know what, actually I want it to be spooky now, unless you like went to their house and it was just decorated like that. But most people felt not shame around doing that. It's just that it just wasn't done. So people didn't do it. People didn't take out their decorations earlier, come up with all these things to do, right? They just had just summer parties or barbecues. And when behavior changes with culture because of use of phones and people being on their phones, and then people kind of saying, doing countdowns to Halloween and countdowns to holidays and then doing stuff like this, it then kind of pushes commerce to go in that direction too, which then can have a ripple effect of feeling like holidays are happening earlier. So again, I don't really understand the whole increased buying in candy corn while you're swimming in a swimming pool, but honestly, Godspeed on that. So if you're watching this thinking like, okay, like what cultural shifts are my customers already participating in, and what should my business actually do with that information to be useful? That's exactly what my room read is built to investigate with you. I look across your audience, your culture, your brand, your performance, your marketing, and your customer experience and operations to understand what's actually happening, what people are responding to in your brand, and then what those signals are actually suggesting that you do next. And if you want me to read your room, the room read link is below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.